So in the final part of our final module here, we're going to discuss phase 2 and where do you go after your phase 2. So if you are awarded your phase 1, thing to keep in mind with phase 2 is, so your phase 1 is really focused around establishing that technical feasibility. Can this work? Can this happen? What do I need to do to actually prove that out? And your phase 2 kind of naturally follows along from that. The results of your phase 1 are really going to inform what you do during your phase 2. But you should be moving towards a market-ready prototype in your phase 2, or a market-ready product, something that is almost ready to stamp out on an assembly line, something that's not held together with duct tape and chicken wire. Something that you can actually demonstrate to a customer and say, this is how it works, this is the purpose, this is how it matches or meets those needs that you have in the marketplace, or how it gets you across those pain points you have. It's really kind of about locking down those research results into something that's tangible, something that you can demonstrate. We discovered that this possibly works during the phase 1. Here's what we're going to do during the phase 2 to show that, yes, we weren't off our rockers. This thing can happen. Here's how it happens. Because of that, your phase 2 is typically a lot more money and a lot more time. So you have a lot more ability to make use of that funding, make use of that time, and have it work, smarter for you. It's really a great time to also bring in things like potential partners, collaborators, people that can help you get across those scalability hurdles. So for manufacturing, distribution, promotion, validation, things like that. And it's also a really great point to kind of build your workforce for the future during this stage. You can bring in people, you can actually get them integrated into the company culture. You can, it always sounds like a bad word, but you can indoctrinate them into what you need employees to do, how you expect your employees to interact, and how you expect projects to go. It's a really great point to kind of establish that this is what we need, this is who we are as a company, and these are the type of people we need to help us reach that next milestone for a company, to help you get to the goals and help you drive that mission of your organization. So unless it's for very limited options like a direct to phase 2, to even apply for a phase 2, you have to have had a successful phase 1. And we don't mean successful just in the fact that, oh, well, you got a phase 1. Remember, again, your phase 2 is informed by your phase 1 results. So you should be able to show at the end of the phase 1 that here's how this can work, here's how we think we can prove this, here's how we can prove this, every time. It's almost like putting together a patent application. You have to know the science, you have to know the background, you have to demonstrate why it works. You have to demonstrate that it works, every time. It's those kind of things that you're really going to do in your phase 2. So when your phase 1 is expiring, some agencies, you'll actually be invited to apply for the phase 2. When your phase 1 is expiring, some agencies, I hate to say it, but kind of don't care. They will have a standard window for a phase 2, just like they had for a phase 1. So one of the really kind of smart pro tips is to line up the end of your phase 1 so that within a 2 or 3 month period, you can look at those results, you can get the reports, you can generate the data, and use that in your phase 2 proposal package. You don't really want a lot of just kind of open schedule or open space between the end of your phase 1 and when that phase 2 would actually start. Because then, things can happen. Projects, go off the rails. If there's not continual funding and development, it might die. So be smart when you're looking at that phase 2 and you're looking at that potential schedule for it. You can actually make the schedule work for you. Couple of other differences here between a phase 1 and a phase 2. So it's not just the amount of money and the period of performance that's going to vary. Your proposal package is actually going to vary. And again, this is going to be driven by the different agencies. So it could be something as simple as adding a new section. It could be something as simple as, having a page to talk about the phase 1 results. Or it could be, very complex. You could actually be adding entire, well, I don't know if you'd call them sections, but let's call them sections. You could be adding, documents. You could be adding entirely new documents to your proposal package. It's really important if you do get a phase 1, as soon as you make that award, to kind of know what's going to go into that phase 2 proposal. What are you going to have? What kind of data are you going to gather? What kind of information do you need to establish? Maybe what kind of market research do you need to go out there and do during that phase 1? There's going to be some key things that you're going to typically talk about in that phase 2 proposal package. How did the project go? Where were the gaps? Where were the challenges? What did you do to overcome those? Take copious notes during your phase 1. Be just kind of blunt with how it's going, what could be better, what could be improved, and where those improvements need to happen. That kind of data is very important for things like a phase 2 proposal package. And some other things that are kind of key to remember here is there's going to be an increase on, not sure if I would call it an increase on how important commercialization is, because it's already pretty important during the phase 1, but there's going to be additional things. You're going to typically have to have additional information. You're going to typically have to kind of start to figure it out. What is that value proposition? You remember during your phase 1, it's your best guess. Well, now it can't be a best guess. You have data. You have, research results. You have testing results. So now you need to go out there and you need to solidify those. So go out there and, interview some potential customers. Make sure that when you're looking at that design, that you're designing it to a customer's needs, that you're not just trying to design the customer to the product, because that just never works out. And kind of as a quick aside, one of the really great things you can do for that is go out there and see it in action. See the way the customer uses their current solution. See how they would be using your solution. See what's the environment they're using it in. You never know what kind of unexpected curveball will be thrown your way if you've never seen them use something. If you've never actually been out in, the quote unquote field and seen how they interact, see what that environment looks like. Maybe you're designing a subsystem for the unmanned ground vehicle, and the subsystem can't take 0-degree temperatures. Well, if it's something that's running in Siberia, you're going to have 0-degree temperatures. So know what that landscape is, know how they use it, know how they put it in place, know how they put it in action. That's really going to kind of inform that product development process. And phase 2 is also a really great time to figure out those revenue streams. Remember, we talked about just a slide ago about setting up those productions, setting up those manufacturing partnerships, things like that. Well, while you're doing your phase 2, kind of figure out what are those 4 P's of marketing. What's that product, place, price, and promotion? How are you going to put that into someone's hands? What are you going to charge? What is the going rate? This is all information that's really going to be critical at the end of a phase 2 when you have to go out there and you have to find your own funding, or you have to look at companion programs. We've talked quite often throughout these modules about not looking at the phase 1 or phase 2 as a silo. Look at it as a project. And that's what you're going to be doing during that phase 2. What can you do to set yourself up for success? What are you doing to plan out, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now, wherever you want to be down the road? What can you do to establish that right now? Because ultimately, you're usually not going to get towards, or you're not going to get that market-ready prototype at the end of a phase 2. Product development takes a long time and a lot of money. Well, depending on the product. If it's something like software, probably not. If it's a new drug to cure nosebleeds, I don't know. It's going to take a long time to actually get that into something you can put in someone's hands, something that you can sell to someone. So the really great thing about phase 2s is, depending on the agency, there's a lot of opportunity there. So even though a phase 3 isn't directly funded, agencies can have, supplemental phase 2s. They can have, companion programs like commercialization readiness or phase 2B or sole source awards. Those things that are going to help you keep moving down the path, that are going to help you get closer and closer to that product, that are going to help you kind of figure out some of those technical challenges that you may not have figured out during the phase 2. And that's fine. If you didn't get all of the way, they kind of know that. They kind of know that you're going to have to go after, other sources of funding. It's probably a large reason why the phase 3 is unfunded. But don't just think about this in the scope of the SBIR program or, the STTR program or, government funding in general. After your phase 2 is also kind of a really great point to approach things like venture capitalists, other alternative sources of funding, matching fund programs that might be in your state. New Mexico has a matching fund. Well, as of this recording, New Mexico has a matching fund. Things change. We can't guarantee it's going to be there. But then there's also other developmental programs, things to offset cost of jobs, things to offset cost of infrastructure improvements, things to reduce tax burdens or give tax incentives. A lot of times you can leverage those programs very well so that you are continuing your development, you are continuing your growth. You're continuing to move down that pathway and move closer to a commercial solution and closer to being a commercial success. So that was kind of summation about really just an overarching view about what is a phase 2, what do you need to do to kind of set yourself up for success, and what are those kind of critical things to start working on once you get your phase 1? Because you should always shoot for going to a phase 2 and for going beyond the phase 2 and going after, depending on the agency, supplemental programs or state programs or other federal assistance or venture capital or angel investment or Indiegogo. However you have to get the funding to finish and get into the commercial marketplace, get the funding. Because ultimately it's about being a successful business and kind of growing and being able to sell more products, growing and being able to hire more people, growing and being able to make your own investments. So that's going to wrap it up for our different modules here. We really hope that you kind of learned a lot about the SBIR and STTR programs over these modules. And as always, if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to us. Send us a question, use the Ask Me Anything function in the Canvas modules. send us a message through there. We're always more than happy to answer it, because you being successful, you growing after SBIR, STTR opportunities, and you securing those wins, is kind of our job. So we want to make sure that you succeed, because then we're successful. So hope these were eventful, at least, hopefully insightful, and we hope that you learned quite a bit as you moved through all these different modules.